Hey, it's Jess. Welcome back. Today I'm here to talk about the best books that I read in 2024. Looking at Storygraph, I had a total of 18 five-star books this year, which is fabulous. 15 of them were new, 3 of them were rereads. I'm going to go over the rereads really quickly because I want to talk about them, but I want to talk about the new ones I found more. So, my first 5-star reread was The Long Walk by Stephen King, one of my favorite of his novels. It was originally published as a Bachman book. It is about a group of boys who once a year they have the long walk. They start up in Maine and they walk. And then they walk until there's only one left. Obviously, twists and turns abide because it is a Stephen King book, but love this one. My next 5-star read was Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Sacher. I never know how to say his name. I saw a post about these book series. This is a book series. I saw a post about them on Facebook and went down this huge rabbit hole and was like, I read those a ton when I was little and I just wanted to read it. And so I found it on Hoopla and read it. And really a lot of it's 5-star just because nostalgia. It's just quirky and weird and I love it. My last 5-star reread was The House from the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is one of my favorite books. I've talked about it many, many times. I reread this one this year because the sequel came out and I have since read that, but I wanted to reread the original or the first one before the sequel came out. Still 5 stars. Even the second time I read it, still 5-star book. Out of the other 15 5-star books that I had this year, I don't really know how to rank them or decide which is my favorite because I liked all of them. And so I'm just going to talk about each of them in the order that I read them. So my first 5-star book was Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. I finished this in January. In this book, you are following a man who is looking for his sister who has been missing. So he goes to this island where everyone in the island is obsessed with the year 1994. And weird things are happening on this island, obviously, because they're all obsessed. They watch the OJ chase every single night. Their fashions are from 94. They talk about music from 1994. And he's trying to figure out where his sister is, why she even came to this island. You're trying to figure out what is up with this island. I don't know. I just really liked this one. I listened to it as an audiobook. I thought it was a really good audiobook, and it was just, part of it got nostalgia for me because talking about the 90s, and I love the 90s. But I don't know. This one was just interesting, and it kept me entertained, and I ended up really enjoying this one. My next 5-star read was Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. I had been hearing a lot about this book, so I saw it at the library, and I picked it up. And I'm so glad I did. You are following a married couple. The mother of the husband dies. Well, she herself. And they move into her house to get it ready to sell. And I think they've been living with her. I can't remember. And she had a very strong relationship with her son. He was her only child, and he's having a really, really hard time with this. The wife, I read this in February, and so I can't remember their names. I think the husband's name is Ralph. I can't remember the main character's name. Weird things start happening once they move into this house, and our main character starts to think that she's being haunted by her mother-in-law, the ghost of her mother-in-law. And her husband starts acting really weird, and life is just weird. This is just a very strange book. It's kind of like grief horror because some of it has to do with grief, obviously. I don't know. It was just a quirky little book. I ended up really, really enjoying it. I'm really glad that I finally read this one. My third 5-star book I also read in February was Monstrillo by Gerardo Samana Cordova. I listened to this one as an audiobook. You are following a mother whose son has died, and when he dies, she saves a piece of his lung. And there's this folk story tale that if you feed this piece of her son, then it will grow into, it'll start growing. So she does, and it grows into this creature named Monstrillo. And this is just another strange book. It is definitely grief horror. It's talking about the grief of losing a child. And then when this child gets basically reborn and is, growing into this monster, and so it's about like the relationship between the mother and the son, the mother and her husband, and it has multiple point of views. You have the mother, you have one of their family friends, you have the father, you also get Monstrilio's point of view, and it starts when he dies, and when it keeps going till Monstrilio is an adult. I don't know, again, just a strange book. I really liked the writing. I liked it as an audiobook. I know some people have read this book and did not enjoy it, and I'm wondering if I enjoyed it so much because of the audiobook. So if you're interested in this odd sounding book that I didn't describe well at all, check out the audiobook. February was just a great month for 5 stars for me. I've had 4, I think, books in February that I read that were 5 stars. So the next 5-star book I read was Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. This one's kind of hard to talk about because it is a sequel. The first book in this series is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. So in this book, you're continuing to follow Ernest Cunningham, who is the main character in the first book and this one. He has written a book about the events in the first book. The narration in this is so weird, the way it's written, because Ernest is talking to you. He breaks the fourth wall all the time. He talks about all the rules for murder mysteries, and he's been invited to a conference as an author, and there are other like mystery thriller authors on the train, and then one of them dies and he's trying to figure out who killed that person. So it's just, a lot of people don't like these books. I loved the first one. I listened to this one as an audiobook, loved this one too. I really enjoy the character of Ernest Cunningham. I love Benjamin Stevenson's writing. I was so excited when this one came out, and I listened to it as soon as I could because I just wanted to get back in this world with these characters because I like them so much. My next 5-star read, also in February, was Chlorine by Jade Song. This is another book that I'd kind of been hearing about. This was not shelved as a horror book, but it definitely has some horror elements. It's also very strange. You are following our main character. She is on the swim team. She's, I believe, Chinese American, and a lot of it is about her not fitting in. She's on the swim team, but she doesn't really have any friends. She's an awkward teenager, and she's obsessed with mermaids. And she gets this idea in her head that if she could just be a mermaid, she would be an even better swimmer than she already is. It's a lot of pressure on herself to compete and be the best in each of her swim meets and not let her team down. And so it's kind of like, talking about that and growing. And anyway, it's a lot of self-reflection about this 16-year-old girl who's obsessed with mermaids and wants to be a mermaid. And I just, again, really liked this one. The ending was super weird, but I don't know. It just hit me at the right time. Really enjoyed this one. Again, not shelved as horror, but definitely has some horror elements, especially towards the end. So be aware of that if it's something that you want to check out. And on to March. My first 5-star read in March was The September House by Carissa Orlando. I cannot stop talking about this book. I have recommended it to so many people. One of my friends also read this book and loved it. She's like, I couldn't fall asleep because I kept reading because I wanted to know what was going to happen. This one, definitely a horror book, definitely has some gruesome scenes, also just creepy, but I just love it so much. So you're following this woman who lives in this house that is haunted. When she bought the house with her husband, they didn't know it was haunted, but there's ghosts that live there, and throughout the year, the hauntings get worse, and then every September, the walls start to drip blood, and it just gets worse and worse and worse as the year goes on. And then it resets itself and does it again. Well, her husband has gone missing, and their daughter has never been to their house and is upset that her dad is missing. And so she's like, I'm going to come visit you at this haunted house, not knowing that it's a haunted house. And so the woman is like, don't come, especially in September because my house is extra super haunted. But the daughter comes anyway. So Our main character is trying to act like nothing is wrong in her house, cleaning up after the ghosts and like the weird things that they do, and trying to act like everything is normal while her daughter is there. They have a very bad relationship. And like the daughter's like, why don't you care that your husband is missing? Where's dad? I haven't seen him in so long. Why are you being so weird? I don't know. Just, I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved all the ghosts. Some of them cracked me up. Some of them were very scary. And it's it's an unreliable narrator. During part of the book, you're like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I can trust her. What is going on? And something about this one hit just right too. And I love this book. I've recommended it to so many people, and it's one that I definitely would like to read again. The next 5-star book I read in March was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I listened to this one as an audiobook. You are following Tress. She lives on this small island where no one ever leaves. Everyone stays on the island. She becomes friends with basically like, I don't think he's a prince, but he's like a duke's son. He's a very like high society guy. I can't think of the word right now. He tried to pretend like he's not from a wealthy family, but Tress is like, yes, you are. Well, her friend gets sent away by his dad and doesn't come back. And so Tress is like, I am going to go find my friend because I want to know what happened to him. I don't just accept that he has gone missing. And so she sets out, she leaves the island, which no one ever does, and hijinks ensue, and she ends up accidentally becoming a pirate. And this book was just so quirky and cute. The audiobook was fabulous. All the characters, like one single person narrated it, but he had different character voices for all the different characters. A bunch of them had different accents. I don't know. It was just so strange and lovely. I read this one because the Buzzwordathon theme in March was character names in the title, so Tress of the Emerald Sea. Tress was just so cute. My mom actually was reading it at the same time as I was. We didn't know that we were reading it together, and she loved it just as much as I did. It's funny and cute and weird, and I feel like it's a good, if you're not like super duper into fantasy, this would be a good starter fantasy book because it's not high fantasy, but it's obviously, I don't know, it's not like super high fantasy, but it's fun, a good introduction into fantasy world building. My next 5-star read was Paladin's Strength by T. Kingfisher. This is also a sequel. It is part of the Saints of Steel series. This book follows characters from the first book. So it is about a sect of paladins whose god has died. So they're the only ones left, and they're the only ones in this sect that didn't go crazy. Because normally when a paladin's god dies, they basically like either off themselves or they just go insane. There are still some, I think there's 4 paladins that followed this god that are still around, and they now work for the Temple of the White Rat. So in this book, one of the paladins is set to escort a nun to another city. She's looking for her fellow sisters because they've gone missing. And so he is tasked with escorting her there to try to find her sisters. She has a dark secret that no one knows about, but you find out about it in this book. These are just like, I love T. Kingfisher. I love her horror. I love her fantasy. This, another fabulous audiobook. It's so humorous, but it like comes out of nowhere, and the characters are so cute. I also like that her main characters are like in their upper 30s. So it's not all these, young 20-year-olds running around doing all this stuff and falling in love. It's actual like old people. I say, as an old person. I don't know. I really relate to that. Love the humor. Love the world building. I think I gave the first book in this series, Paladin's Grace, I gave that a 5-star. I gave this one a 5-star. I haven't listened to the other. I know there's at least 2 more books in this series. There may be more. I haven't listened to those yet. I'm hoping to in the upcoming year. But I love these characters. I love T. Kingfisher's writing. Yeah, if you're looking for a cozy fantasy, it's kind of low stakes, has a little bit of romance in it, but some humor too, then check this one out. 3 of those books were March 5-star reads. And then I didn't have a single new 5-star read until June. So April and May, I did reread House in the Cerulean Sea, but again, like new to me books, I didn't have another 5-star until June. And that's when I read Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. I had been hearing all about this book, saw that it was at my library as an audiobook on Hoopla, so I picked it up. Short little book, very strange. You are following Rosemary, who goes by Ro, I believe. Or Rose? Ro. I think she goes by Ro. She just broke up with her boyfriend, has moved to this small town, and meets Ash at the local farmer's market. And although Ro has never been interested in girls before, she finds herself attracted and connected with Ash and decides, hey, I'll just give this a shot and see where it goes. So they form a little romance, but Ash has a secret that she has not told Ro, and things just go from there. And holy cow, I was enjoying this book, and then the ending happened, and I was like, whoa, 5 stars. This, again, it's a short book. I think the audiobook was like maybe 5 hours long, but so much happens. It was so, I hate to say cute because it is a horror book. If I didn't mention that, this is a horror novella. But it just, I don't know. I loved the writing. I loved the characters. I didn't know, parts of it was predictable, but like I didn't know where it was going to end up. And I was, again, like jaw on the floor. Wow. I really liked that ending. And I know that Delilah S. Dawson has another new book out. I'm hoping to read it next month in January, because I just loved this one so much. All right. And then in July, the first book I'm pretty sure the first book I finished in July was a 5-star read, and that was Night's Edge by Liz Curran. I read this because my book club had picked it to read. This is a horror book, but not scary in like monsters body horror. You are following Mia. This book is in dual timelines. Her mom dies in 2010. And so you're following her that night because she dies, and then Izzy wakes up because she's actually a vampire. And then you're following them. The second timeline is 13 years down the road, how they've been living their lives with Mia being a 10-year-old when this happens, and Izzy being turned into a vampire. In this world that vampires are known to be a thing, but they basically are illegal. Like they're called Sarahs. If you're a Sarah, then you are supposed to turn yourself in and live in this like basically containment camp. And they obviously, Mia and Izzy don't do that. So you get how they've gotten to 2023, but also now that Mia is 24, she has realized she's been living the last half of her life just for her mother. She follows all the rules. She's home every single night. She feeds her mother every day. She doesn't do anything that she's not supposed to do. And then she meets someone and she realizes that maybe it's time that she starts living her life for herself instead of for others. And so it's like, she goes through a little bit of a rebellion. I loved this book. It, again, horror, but not like, it's horror because it's vampires, but it's not like blood and guts, creature feature, scary horror. To me. I don't know. Maybe it would be to you. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in my book club that gave this a 5-star, but I devoured this book. I loved it. It just, I don't know. I loved the writing. There is a sequel, which I have read. I liked it, not as much as the first one. And honestly, if you wanted to read these and not read the sequel, I think that Night's Edge would stand as, like, could make it as a standalone as well. My next 5-star book in July was Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. This one, yet again, difficult to talk about because it is the third book in a series. You are still following Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne. They These books take place like right at the basically like almost a year after the end of Magnolia Parks. And so Magnolia and BJ have been together forever. It's toxic romance to the extreme. They broke up, they get back together. Then Magnolia finds out something about the breakup. She's devastated. She moves to America. This book is her coming back and them trying to rekindle their relationship, not necessarily like as lovers, because they were just best friends. They've known each other since they were like 6 years old. And so this book goes into their background a little bit more, some things that happened in the past, but also just builds on them as characters. Again, they are so toxic for each other, but I adored this book. I like all the Magnolia Parks books. This one was my favorite though. It broke my heart, and I don't know. I just really, really liked this one. In August, I had one 5-star book, and that was Loveless by Alice Oseman. Still can't find my dust jacket, so here it is, Loveless by Alice Oseman. You can kind of see the front a little bit. This is a young adult book. You are following Georgia. She and her 2 best friends are going off to college, and while they are in the same college, they are in different houses. And Georgia has never been on her own, and she's never been away from her friends, even in the way that they are at this college. She joins like the Pride Society, and she finds out about asexuality and aromanticism. And the more she finds out about that, the more she starts thinking, I think that sounds like me, because she's never had a boyfriend. She's never had a relationship. She's never even had like really an attraction to anyone before, but she didn't know she'd never heard the terms asexuality or aromanticism. So she didn't even know that that was a thing. And so it's her coming to terms with that, learning more about it, trying to explain to her friends about that while still navigating everything that comes around with, going to college, fighting with your friends, learning who you are as a person, and growing in those, late teens. Always an awkward time anyway. I just adored this book. I was like 20 pages in, and I texted my best friend and I'm like, this book is amazing. I think everyone should read it. It is a young adult book, but I don't know. Something about it. Alice Oseman is a wonderful writer, and I couldn't get enough of this book. I enjoyed every minute of it. Okay, 3 more books left. Luckily, I had one. I had a 5-star October, November, December. So good way to wrap up the year. In October, the 5-star book I read was Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna. I forgot her name for a second. This book is set in a small Pacific Northwest town where one day a 6-year-old girl just walks out of the woods with a wolf pup, and no one knows her name, where she came from, where she's been, anything about her. She doesn't speak. She doesn't interact. She's like a feral child. So the police chief of this small town calls her sister, who is a child psychologist, to come and see if she can help this girl and find out who she is, get her to talk and interact and grow, just find out more about her. I don't know, man. Something about this book hit me right. I cried a few times. It was heartwarming. Part of it did not age well. This was written in 2006, and so there's one part where they're like, well, obviously this girl's not autistic because she makes eye contact like every child with autism. The only reason that they're autistic is because they don't make eye contact. Didn't love that. But the rest of the book, I don't know. I loved the characters. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to find out what was going to happen with this little girl. And I just really enjoyed this one. I feel like I've ended all of these descriptions with I really enjoyed this one. But I did. That's why they're 5-star books. I had a lot this year. I'm very, very happy. And in November, my 5-star book was Spy Family Volume 2 by Tatsuya Endo. Always forget that. I read this because my daughter wanted me to. You are following the Forger family, Lloyd Forger, Lloyd Forger is the dad. He is actually a spy with the codename Twilight. He is trying to get close to this man, so he has created this family. Yor is his wife. Does not know he's a spy, and it turns out she is an assassin. He does not know that. He has adopted a little girl named Anya. Named Anya. This is her on the cover. Anya can read minds. They don't know that. So, Lloyd's a spy, doesn't know anything about the other two. Yor's an assassin, doesn't know anything about the other two. Anya reads minds. They don't know it, but she knows he's a spy and she's an assassin. You know, it all comes together in the end. Obviously, hijinks ensue. So in the first book, it is about finding the family and then applying to get into this school because the son of the target that Lloyd is trying to get close to goes to the school. Anya gets accepted to the school, and it's her kind of navigating this social world because it's very like elite. She was an orphan, so she's not high society. And she's like 6, so she's also kind of weird. I don't know. I just really liked this one. I think the illustrations are cute. I love the family. You learn more about Yor in this one, and I really enjoyed learning more about her and her family. I don't know. This one, it was cute and I liked it. And my last 5-star book of 2024. I mean, I'm filming this a few days before the end, but all the books I'm reading right now, none of them really I feel like are going to be 5 stars. So I feel comfortable saying that this is my last 5-star. And if I happen to get one in the next 3 days, so be it. It is what it is. Anyway, my last 5-star read of 2024 was Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. I just realized this is the second book by her that ended up on this list. This is a short novella. You are following Toadline. She has been tasked with standing guard of this hedge of thorns in front of this tower because she's trying to keep everyone from going through the hedge and getting into the tower. It is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but it's a retelling where one of the fairies is our main character and maybe she wasn't evil like everyone thinks she was, but not like Maleficent. Anyway, Sleeping Beauty, one of my favorite stories. She is my favorite Disney princess. I love Aurora. I love the story of Sleeping Beauty. I love T. Kingfisher. I loved this take on it. It has obviously like a Prince Charming, but she just writes characters so well. I don't know what it is about her fantasy. I don't know how to describe it, but they're so human and like relatable. And even though we have a Prince Charming, he is not like dashing and super strong and, you know, not everyone's fawning over him. And our main character, it says several times that she is not beautiful. She is this weird little fairy thing that can turn into a toad, which is why her name is Toadline. Anyway, I devoured this book. I think I read it in like less than 24 hours. Because again, it is a short little book. I love fairy tale retellings, and if this sounds interesting to you, then I suggest you check it out. Those are all the 5-star books that I had in 2024. A pretty good reading year. I mean, I had a little bit of a dry spell there for a little bit, but I am really excited that I found so many new to me books that I just love. Many of these I talk about several times. I talk about them with other people, and I would love to go back and reread them. I think that is the sign of a great book if it's one that you want other people to read and that you want to reread yourself. So now I want to know, have you read any of these books? What did you think? All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.